From battlefields to broadcast studios, Pete Hegseth has never been afraid to speak his mind or stand by his convictions. But who is the man behind the headlines? With a mix of combat medals, best-selling books, and bold TV moments, Pete has built a reputation that's as polarizing as it is intriguing. In this video, we're diving into the life and career of a soldier-turned-political firebrand whose journey has taken him from the front lines of war to the front lines of America's culture battles. Whether you love him or love to hate him, there's no denying Pete Hegseth is a force to be reckoned with. Let's get into it. Peter Brian Hegseth was born June 6, 1980 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He earned a Bachelor of Arts in Politics from Princeton University and a Master in Public Policy from Harvard University's John F. Kennedy School of Government. Peter served as an infantry officer in the Army National Guard, with deployments to Guantanamo Bay, Iraq, and Afghanistan. He was awarded 2 Bronze Stars and a Combat Infantryman Badge for his service. Political background. Pete was a staunch advocate of the disastrous Iraq War in 2008, supporting John McCain and George W. Bush. Here's Hegseth speaking at a John McCain rally in January 2008, being introduced by known war hawk Lindsey Graham. Hegseth founded the group Vets for Freedom that lobbied to keep the Iraq War going.
Pete, how do you say your last name? Hegseth. Have you ever heard Vets for Freedom? It was an organization created of veterans of Iraq that came to Congress to beg the Congress not to surrender. They came to Congress and they said, whether you're a Republican or you're a Democrat or a vegetarian, please don't let what we have done in Iraq be for nothing. Hang in there. This Harry Reid statement, the war was lost, was news to Pete and his comrades. They didn't think they had lost, so they formed a group to come to Congress and literally beg us to see this thing through. And they were our anchor, they were our comfort, and they helped John and me and Joe Lieberman. And like every good thing, you know how they got started? In a bar in Charleston. Pete, please tell these people why you did not want us to surrender in Iraq, and tell us about John McCain.
Well, it's an absolute honor to be here, especially with all these decorated veterans. I mean, what an honor. And what Senator Graham said is absolutely accurate. We came up there as a group of Iraq and Afghanistan veterans saying, do not let the sacrifice of the guys we fought over there with be in vain. I was over there with the 101st Airborne. From 2005 to 2006, and I came back a little frustrated because I knew we needed to win. And I knew Iraq is the central battlefront in a larger fight against radical Islam. And John McCain knows that too, and so does Senator Graham and a lot of other senators on Capitol Hill, but some don't. And they wanted to ensure that we left that battlefield before it was finished. And so we just brought our guys up to Capitol Hill, and we had as many meetings as we could with all the guys up on the Hill, and they're thankfully most were willing to meet with us. Some said, you know, we don't want to hear it. Others said, we're with you, and we're going to have your back. And the one that was with us the most was Senator John McCain. You know, he's seen it before, and he understands the stakes. You know, I came back frustrated because I didn't think we had enough troops, and I didn't think we were necessarily using the right strategy. And there was one man in the end of 2006 who was saying that same thing. And it was John McCain. He was a lone voice in the wilderness saying, you know what, this is a fight we need to win, and we need to change our strategy, and we need more troops to do it. And
Well, you heard it. Pete said we needed even more troops in Iraq. Here's Pete throwing his support behind the decider himself, George W. Bush, the notorious conductor of the disastrous Iraq War. 6 years later, Pete Hegseth joined Fox News as a contributor in 2014 and became a co-host of Fox and Friends Weekend in 2017. Of all his contributions to Fox News, almost deleting a drummer with a throwing axe has to be his most memorable moment.
With the axe, who's going to win this battle with the lumberjack? That's going to come next. I'm putting my money on Clayton.
later, Pete Hegseth, speaking to a like-minded crowd in 2016, said, "I don't want to be the world's policeman forever, but you better believe I'm willing to be the world's sheriff and I'm willing to be the world's leader."
Because after World War II, the Brits, exhausted after 2 wars, they took a knee. And what did they do? They handed the keys to the free world over to the young Americans. And they said, go toe-to-toe with those communists, hold the line. And we have, and we did. If we take a knee today, the keys go to who? Nobody. The Chinese dream, the Chinese civilization, when there literally is a Chinese dream, and it looks the exact opposite of ours, and they're trying to execute it right now. Islamism, ISIS, Iran, Putin, globalists, frankly. I mean, it's its own emerging civilization, the belief that we're perfectible and we could just sort of form some sort of a one-world government and we're all good. Those are the competing views. There isn't another vanguard of Western civilization. It was Western Europe. Western Europe isn't Western Europe the way it was Western Europe. And no one else has the capabilities that we do. So if we don't address our debt, if we don't address our military, if we don't rebuild it, if we don't get ourselves on the right track, history isn't over. And I don't want to be the world's policeman forever, but you better believe I'm willing to be the world's sheriff and I'm willing to be the world's leader until there is somebody that's capable to do it, because there isn't anybody else. And I think our job, especially vets and others, but folks that understand it, is to fortify the American people that we can't be war-weary. What is war-weary? Honestly. Does it mean we quit?
In another 2016 talk from Pete, he says Americans are largely asleep, unlike wise Israelis, and suggests he's preparing his young boys to fight future wars side by side with Israel.
Predominantly in American culture today, American culture is largely asleep. Largely asleep to the realities of the world that we face. Largely asleep to the depth of the threats on the horizon. And the state of Israel, for reasons that you all understand far better than I, is not asleep. And is forced each and every day to wake up under the umbrella of existential threats. So when I speak in America, I always end by talking about a quote that is, or a sentiment that is oftentimes used in America, which is that veterans will be tempted to say, I fought, I put on a uniform, I went to Iraq or Afghanistan or World War I or World War II or Korea or Vietnam so that my kids won't have to. I fought so that they can live in peace. And it is a tempting thought. In fact, in World War II, after American GIs deployed around the globe to defeat Nazis and the Imperial Japanese, liberate camps too late in many places, but be a part of that generation went back to America and said, we did fight the Nazis so the next generation can live more free. But I counsel nobody to say that anymore, and I never say it myself. I didn't fight so that my kids won't have to fight. I fought knowing that my kids will have to fight as well. And
to clarify where Pete stands on Israel, his comments on Fox News make it glaringly clear. He says, if you open up your Bible, God granted Abraham this land.
Ainsley, if you open up your Bible, God granted Abraham this land. The 12 tribes of Israel established the constitutional monarchy 1000 BC. King David was their second king and established Jerusalem as the capital. Jews were fighting foreign occupiers for centuries, ultimately maintaining a presence there. But the key aspect, and right now, Palestinians, Arabs, Muslims are trying to erase the Jewish ties to Jerusalem as we speak. I've been there multiple times. They're trying to make it look like Jews were never there. The most important aspect of this is the international community granted sovereignty to the Jews, to the Jewish state after World War II, and Israel has had to fight defensive war after defensive war with every country coming to crush it ever since then just to exist.
Continuing on the Israel topic, Pete responds to concerns that many political pundits have expressed with dual loyalty between America and Israel. He says this type of thinking is dead wrong.
anyone that wants to take the stage and talk about dual loyalty is dead wrong. What this organization represents, what Western civilization represents today, is an understanding that Zionism and Americanism are the front lines of Western civilization and freedom in our world today.
In a talk for the Heritage Foundation, Pete continues on his ideological theme as he says, there's a Marxist political movement that seeks the destruction of Western civilization and the U.S.
Community by community, school board by school board, city by city, state by state, and across this nation, there is a Marxist political movement, call it culturally Marxist, call it progressive, call it what you want, that seeks the destruction of Western civilization and Judeo-Christian values, America being the most obvious representative of that over the last 250 years. That is their goal.
The dictionary definition of zealot is a person who is fanatical and uncompromising in pursuit of their religious, political, or other ideals. This perfectly describes Pete Hegseth. Here's a short clip of his recent comments about rebuilding the Third Temple on the Temple Mount. The issue is, for the temple to be rebuilt, several mosques that are currently there will have to be destroyed, which guarantees religious wars.
Because 1917 was a miracle, 1948 was a miracle, 1967 was a miracle, 2017, the declaration of Jerusalem as the capital, was a miracle, and there's no reason why the miracle of the reestablishment of the temple on the Temple Mount is not possible. I don't know how it would happen. You don't know how it would happen, but I know that it could happen. That's all I know. And a step in that process, a step in every process, is the recognition that facts and activities on the ground truly matter. And that's why going and visiting Judea and Samaria, understanding that sovereignty, the very sovereignty of Israeli soil, Israeli cities, locations, is a critical next step to showing the world that this is the land for Jews and the land of Israel.
Now, let's take a look at how Pete views Ukraine. Surely he takes a much more moderate, reserved stance, right? No. In this clip he says, the future of America and the Western world were at stake in Ukraine, impacting the cause of freedom for generations to come.
The consequences of this war are still unfolding, and the future of not just Ukraine, but America and the Western world is in jeopardy. The actions taken today in Ukraine, in the halls of Europe, and in the White House will impact the cause of freedom for generations to come. We pray for peace, but plan for war. History shows us that peace only comes through strength, strength that is meant to deter war. But war has broken out, which is why we must consider the worst case scenario.
Pete continues to shoot off his mouth on geopolitics, this time talking about Russian President Putin, calling him a war criminal and saying Russia is just a gas station with a flag.
When it comes to Ukraine, though, Harris, he's going to double down on the tactics he believes will bring civilians to their knees. You know why? He doesn't play by the rules of war. We call him a war criminal, and we do, and rightfully so. He doesn't care. Russia's not a signatory to the International Criminal Court. He doesn't feel any threat that he'll be held accountable. Ceasefires? You know what ceasefires are for him? An opportunity to reload, an opportunity to pick more targets. And he's already said, I mean, this is a precarious part for Zelensky, too. Zelensky did the right thing in saying, hey, any man in this country, stay here, pick up a rifle, and fight. But in the twisted mind of Vladimir Putin, you know what that says? Every man in the country who was a civilian is now a military target. That means any civilian target could be a military target. And women and children that are there are human shields for the men who are carrying Kalashnikovs. Think about it through the psychology of him. So we talk about the targeting of civilians, and rightfully so. He's saying those are now military targets, and KT's entirely right. I mean, Russia's effectively a gas station with a flag, and when you cut off their energy capabilities, you cripple them. When you increase sanctions, as the Trump administration did, you make them more vulnerable. And when you supply actual weapons instead of blankets to their adversaries, you're able to block them. I mean, remember—
Okay, so Pete wants to give the Ukraine American weapons to fight a war with Russia. You may think, that's a terrible idea. Well, wait until you hear Pete's advice on what should be done in Iran. In this Fox News discussion, he says, Iran should be given a week before America starts bombing their power plants, ports, and other locations.
Sometimes you have moments, Steve, and I happen to believe that we can't kick the can down the road any longer in trying to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear bomb. They used the killing of Soleimani as an excuse to say, we're scrapping the Iran deal. We all know they were scrapping it anyway. So what better time than now to say, we're starting the clock. You've got a week. You've got X amount of time before we start taking out your energy production facilities. We take out key infrastructure. We take out your missile sites. We take out nuclear developments.
That is
we
not
take out
a popular idea.
capabilities. Or you know what? Take out a Quds headquarters while you're at it if you want. I understand that's not a popular idea.
Okay, so Pete still supports the utter disaster called the war in Iraq, wants to arm Ukraine so they can go to war with Russia, and he wants to bomb Iran. You may be wondering what his thoughts are on China. Here's Pete in an interview, promoting one of his books talking about the Pentagon's simulation of a war between the U.S. and China.
The Pentagon is in the book the exact amount of years, but in the past X number of years, 10, 12, 15, the Pentagon has a perfect record in all of its war games against China. We lose every time inside the Pentagon war games. We know what our real capability. You see, we didn't even get to this part of the war on warriors. I mean, the military-industrial complex, the way we procure weapon systems. We're always the way our system works, the way our bureaucratic system works, where the speed of weapons procurement works. We're always a decade behind in fighting the last war. Whereas China, we have what did Rumsfeld say? You go to the war, the army you have. We have the army. China's building an army specifically dedicated to defeating the United States of America. That is their strategic outset. Take hypersonic missiles. So if our whole power projection platform is aircraft carriers and the ability to project power that way strategically around the globe, and yeah, we have a nuclear triad and all of that, but a big part of it. And if 15 hypersonic missiles can take out our 10 aircraft carriers in the first 20 minutes of a conflict, what does that look like?
With all of Pete's war hawkery, you would think he would be an absolute supporter of benefits for injured veterans, right? No. In this clip on Fox News, Pete explains how he is against veterans using more benefits than he says they need.
Look at this, veterans granted disability compensation. If you compare after World War II, 1.5 million veterans, 2017, 4.5 million veterans.
This is a really complicated discussion. This is about disability ratings, which isn't always necessarily tied to healthcare, but the idea that the healthcare you get is about service-connected disabilities. So if you go to war and you get injured, we'll take care of you. So when you come home, they try to rate how disabled you are, and that's how much care you get. Well, I could be rated for 50% right now if I wanted to be. I mean, just to have a totally, and vets know this out there, I could do ear and ankle and knee and back.
It's proportional,
because
right?
It's proportional for different injuries that you have. Groups out there, vets groups mostly, encourage vets to apply for every government benefit they can ever get after they leave the service. Because, well, why not, right? The government's giving it out. To me, the ethos of service is I serve my country because I love my country, and I'm going to come home and start the next chapter of my life. And if I've got a chronic condition, mental, physical, otherwise, the government better be there for me. But otherwise, I don't want to be dependent if I don't have integrity.
You got to have personal integrity.
And right now, a lot of groups are convincing vets to give, get, take more from the system as opposed to just what you need for the service you gave.
Before you commit to an opinion on Pete's advice for veterans' healthcare benefits, you may want to consider how he takes care of his own personal hygiene. Here's a clip from Fox News where Pete admits that he, quote-unquote, never washes his hands. Yeah, seriously.
I don't think I've washed my hands for 10 years. Really, I don't really wash my hands ever.
Help me!
No, I inoculate myself. It's not, germs are not a real thing. I can't see them, therefore they're not real.
So you're becoming a...
I can't see them, therefore they're not real.
So you're becoming a...
So now it's time for you to weigh in. What is your opinion on Pete Hegseth? Do you agree with President Donald Trump's nomination of him to Secretary of Defense? Are you okay with his ideological positions and geopolitical ambitions? What would you ask Pete if you had an hour to interview him? How well do you think he will be received by the military as its new leader? At this time, I want to thank you for liking this video. If you did not like this video, share it with someone who will. Subscribe to Trending Interesting Facts for more content. Subscribe to Trending Interesting Facts for more content. Subscribe to Trending Interesting Facts for more content. Until the next time, peace.